Hey, looks like we're live.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, you guys might not know it, but we were like 10 seconds late
Oh my
from the
goodness.
timer. I know.
Well, I guess we have to quit.
Oh gosh, I cannot believe we let our viewers down like that. Well, today we're coming to you guys a little bit different. What we're going to talk about today, we're actually going to be a little vulnerable with you guys today. Kind of a weird thing going on there, but hope everybody's having a good Wednesday. Before we do that, busy here. Dodged a bullet with our car this week. Yesterday it wasn't working. We thought it was the transmission, and it ends up that it was just the battery. So feeling super good about that. Very relieved. But anyway, I know a lot of people have told me that we kind of like march to the beat of a different drum in our channel. They're always like, your channel's kind of different, Wendy. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. One person told me once it was like a counter narrative. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. It's a counter narrative. I thought that was a really great way to put it. But there's a reason that we do that. There's a reason that we go all counter narrative, and it's because of what we experienced early on.
Our experiences.
Yeah. So
Learning.
it's yeah, it's the learning, the hard knocks. And so to the extent that everybody, in fact, I gotta show you this. Okay. So if you know me at all, you know that this is everything I talk about on my channel. I'm always telling you, don't get pressured, always get the data, never overpay for the house, never overpay for the loan, and always read the contract. Like any of you that have watched my channel know that I talk about that all the time. And this is why. It's because we did face a foreclosure and we didn't have any of those things. Mm-hmm. Nobody did any of those things with us. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys tonight. And it is kind of vulnerable because it's our personal experience. Anyway, so how did everything start? 2003?
2000-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like 2003.
Yeah.
I was a stay-at-home mom. He was the breadwinner. He was in IT sales. So to those of you who meet him and know he's super analytical, it's because he comes from a background of information technology sales. So that was him. Anyway, and so I bet everybody's heard of this book. Like we read this book.
Oh, yeah.
And I bet everybody out there that is probably read it. Okay. So please comment, by the way, if you've heard of this book, definitely. And by the way, please leave your questions in the chat. Anyway, okay, so the book that we read was kind of like a game changer. It was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So please tell me, have you read it? Like,
raise your hand.
Raise your hand. It was like a really popular book back then, in like the 2003
well, he's
type.
Still pretty popular. So.
Do you think he's still pretty popular? And to me, he's kind of a has-been, but maybe he is still pretty popular.
There's still a lot of stuff. I still see things about him.
Anyway, it was just really inspiring. Like we got really excited when we read the book and we were talking about it. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to have passive income. And so that's what kind of started. And I can tell you, like, we were very smart financially back then. And we had really high credit. We lived within our budget. We didn't have any credit card debt. Right. And so then the next thing you know, we have a foreclosure. Right. And so that's a really weird thing. And I think a lot of people were surprised by that. At least I think we were. We were like, how did this happen? Anyway, so we read this book, we get super excited. I'm still a data nerd. I was a data nerd then. And so I just start reading. I'm reading everything. But the thing was, I wasn't reading to understand how real estate, buying a house worked. I was more like looking at it from like an investment lens. Right. Because I wanted us to have a lot of rentals.
Money off of it,
yeah, like how do you profit off of a house? Like cash flow analysis, capitalization rate. Yeah. The whole, we had like these cute little worksheets where we would, check out what cash flow was, and we would estimate how much repairs would cost. We were kind of like really into that side of it. And
we even went to several seminars on that kind of stuff.
I forgot about that. Yeah. We did go to several seminars. So we were just like the ultimate rich dad, poor dad cheerleader.
I guess so.
We were like, we're going to be, we're going to have all this passive income. We're going to retire, like that was our thought process was like, because by the way, at that point, he was traveling like 3 to 4 days a week sometimes. Right. So I'm home with 4 little kids then, and he's traveling. So like totally appealed, right. To get all this passive income. We're going to invest, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's kind of how it happened. I wasn't licensed as a realtor and honestly didn't really know much about real estate at that point. Like I was nowhere near like what I am now, right? I wasn't even licensed. But we started getting rentals because you know what? Like really, when they say that if you had a pulse, you could get credit back then, they're not lying.
That's true. Yeah.
Like because what happened was we would like apply for a loan and they would use the projected income off of the rental to qualify it for us. Right. And who decided how much it would rent for? Well, we did.
Mm-hmm.
So we would tell them, I think this house will lease, you know, for whatever, $1,500 a month. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And then they would use that as income to qualify you. I mean, it was like, you know, it's on the one hand, it's so easy, but on the other hand, it's a terrible thing for it to be that easy. Anyway, so we start looking to buy rentals and we meet a realtor. And I mean, to the extent that I am forever saying, don't let realtors pressure you when you know it, that comes from experience.
Yeah.
We had a really high pressured realtor. I mean, he just was like, a lot of times I felt like I was negotiating with him instead of the seller. Like he was always telling me, you know, pay more, pay more, pay more. In fact, like, okay, I put this because that just reminded me of him. And the sad thing is it's what happens now too. Like, you know, how many of you have heard that in YouTube videos, right? Prices will only go up from here. It's always a good time to buy, which, and by the way, back then prices were about to go down.
Well, yeah.
It's a great investment.
Crash, yeah.
It'll be gone tomorrow. Act fast. The big one that he used to push, this realtor, was to not ask for an option period. He's like, you're not going to get your offer accepted if you don't skip the option period, right? And then of course he would push us to pay the highest price. He pushed hard for us to pay the highest price, and so we were in just kind of this. And I think honestly, I mean, I don't think it helped that you were traveling.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I mean,
So
because
just blame it on me.
it was really. No, and it was hard because I had like 4 kids at home, you know, and he's calling, and the guy was just calling all the time. You know, he was really a hungry realtor, right? And just harass. Years later, I look back at it and I'm like, think about all the things he didn't do, right? So what he didn't do, okay, he never explained what it meant to be represented. He never read a contract with me, right? He never provided an objective market analysis. Okay, never. In fact, you guys are not going to believe this when I tell you what they used to do. Back then, you could pick your own appraiser to appraise your house for the lender. So you could like tell the lender, I want to use this appraiser. And you could do that. And so our realtor had his own appraiser. And so the realtor would be like, you need to offer higher on this house because it's worth, you know, $200,000.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, it appraised for $200,000. And I was like, this guy is brilliant. He really knows what he's doing. And I never fully realized what was happening was like, he was telling the appraiser, use these comps and make it worth $200,000. So that was really what was going on. Anyway, so it just ended up, we were really taken advantage by this realtor. We also really got taken advantage by lenders. And, you know,
which was the norm back there. That's a lot of why we ended up with the crash that we had in the 2008 through 2010.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Why there's so many regulations now.
The man makes a good point. In fact, I was about
That's why your closing package went from like this to like this now.
But it's a good thing. This is a good thing. I was actually about to say they did all this stuff to clean up the lending side of it, but realtors are still allowed to be like really high pressured and stuff. And I don't like that. Right. So like the lender part of it, they can't be as
you have to choose. Pushy, you have to choose good service people.
You do. Yeah. You really do.
Be picky about who you choose.
Yeah. So like this one time we were refinancing and the notary came to our house to let us sign on this refinance. This is for Oak Meadow. And I was like, oh, this is so great. Cause you didn't do that back then. You like always went into closing. So at this refinance, okay, no one ever reviewed the loan estimate with us. No one ever reviewed the closing disclosure. No one helped us. And I remember I was looking at it and I was like, this is like a ton of closing costs. It was like $30,000 in closing costs.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck? And so I asked the closer and she was just a notary. And I was like, is this normal? Like, is this always supposed to be this high? And I'll never forget her answer. She goes, well, for this one it is. And I was like, okay, color us stupid.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm still mad about that. Like we just got totally taken advantage of. So like one thing I always push is to read the loan estimate, right? And so, okay, let me show you this. Now, this has changed a lot, but when we were working with lenders, all right, they would charge extra points that and no one explained it to us because the realtor sure didn't explain it to us. They never reviewed the loan estimate or the closing disclosure, which by the way, it was called something different back then.
Yeah.
It
was a HUD one.
Yeah, it was called a HUD one settlement statement. Yeah. And they bait and switched with the interest rates all the time. Like I would come to closing thinking the interest rate. I remember like on one of them, I went to closing and the guy had quoted me like 6% on the first lien and like 8.5% on the second lien. And that was Emory Oak. And I was like, oh, this is so great. You know, that's not bad at all. Okay. We got to closing and the interest rate for the second lien was 11.5%. Like literally, we did not know until we were signing the papers. And I was like, what is this about? But then, you know, you sort of feel like, well, we're at closing. We can't do anything.
Again, that's where another thing has come out, the 3-day.
Yes.
3-day closing disclosure period.
Right. So back then you didn't have that.
Yeah.
Back then you didn't know anything until you came to closing and you might find out. So, I mean, like that came from, and remember, this is like 2003, 2004. So this is like right before, you know, all the legislation changed everything. So, you know, we've got, you know, our lender here. Let me see here now. And he would bait and switch on the closing costs. Oh, and the other big thing, didn't explain the loan type. So I don't know if you've watched like The Big Short, that movie, but it's all accurate. The loans really were bad. And so we didn't know anything about the loan programs either. No one, you have to remember at that point, we're very green, we're novice, we're young parents. We have like stars in our eyes about how we're going to, you know, rich dad, poor dad, but we didn't really know anything. And so really would have been great for a realtor to help us, but we didn't get that. So that part didn't go great. But so let me show you this, okay? Because this is what I was talking about with the appraiser. The appraiser and the realtor worked together, right? And so whatever the CMA, the realtor gave the appraiser, that's what the value always ended up being, right? So supposedly, you know, I remember on paper, it was looking like we were millionaires at the time because we had all this equity, you know.
Well, our net worth was pretty high but it was none of it was liquid.
Yeah. So that's exactly what it was. So our net worth was really high, but none of it was liquid. And then we didn't know that none of it was actually real because it was all based on those appraisers. The appraisals that they would come up with that were completely, you know, so the realtor's like, you know, pay more. Look at what this is worth. You can come up on your offer, you know, and then the appraiser's like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's worth this, you know? And so like, it really was very predatory. And I think you guys hear me say that all the time. You hear me use the expression predatory. Okay. So all of this, you're seeing the whole foreclosure. So let me tell you about one of the deals that we did, which, and by the way, as investor knowledgeable as we are now, we don't actually work with investors. Yeah, we don't work with investors. And the reason is that I just don't think that Dallas is good for that. It doesn't cash flow at the price of the real estate and the interest rate and the fact that you can't get the forward commitment. You can't get the low interest rates, right? Every investor that would ever come to us and be like, I'm going to buy a rental house.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a cash buy. You're probably going to have to fix it up yourself. Usually it's going to be bigger people that have like or contractors or something like that'll do those. So they can make them cash flow or a little bit, maybe not a lot. I get lots of inquiries about investors. They're pretty hungry. They're trying to find good stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
a lot out there.
Yeah. I mean, all the people that called me talking about investing, they always wanted new houses. And so it was like, I get that it's low maintenance, but just didn't cash flow. Anyway, so story about one of our first really big ones. Okay. We'll call this one Columbia. You remember Columbia? Oh my gosh, it was awful. Yeah. So Columbia had sort of this commercial feel to it. It was inside a gated community. And it had 5 duplexes. and it was inside this gated community. So it kind of felt like you were buying an apartment complex. I mean, it kind of did. It just kind of had that
basically it was
commercial feel to it. So we looked at it. We looked at, the rent roll that the seller gave, and we were like, this really doesn't cash flow enough, So I remember kind of just, this one's not meant to be. Next, just moving on. But then the realtor starts calling, and he's calling, and he's calling, and he's calling. Long story short, we end up buying the thing. I still don't even know how that happened. I don't know why we did it. Anyway, that one ended up being a colossal loss of money. We lost thousands of dollars on it because the seller had lied about the rent roll. He had made up rents when the units weren't actually renting for that. And so it took us getting in to realize, oh, that's not what the rent is.
Yeah.
Right. So
there were some that were, people had left and all their stuff was still there and things like that. So
some of them were, that's right.
Yeah.
Some of them were vacant, and he had made it out to where they weren't, right? But we didn't know because there was all this stuff in it. So we thought that it was. Anyway, that one was bad. We learned really hard lessons on that one, but didn't end up in foreclosure with that one. Thankfully.
Yeah.
We were able to sell that one. What a relief. Never more relief. But then there was the one we ended up having a foreclosure on, and it was just a really ugly experience. That one, Cottonwood. Okay. So got to tell you the story of Cottonwood, because you can go from having like A+ credit to having a foreclosure, and your credit completely tanks with one house. All right, guys, one bad investment. That's it. One. And suddenly your credit is bad. You have a foreclosure. You're at risk of a deficiency judgment. Okay. All of this goes on. And that's what happened to us. So, one day we're going about our business, and our realtor literally shows up at our front door, and he's like, you guys have to see this house. This is just an unbelievable good deal. And I remember, I think it was priced at like $127. It's like, y'all are probably like, whoa, that's but back then that was not like a great deal, but he played it up so big. Oh my goodness. He played it up really big. And so I didn't know until years later that all of the hoopla that he put on was because there was a realtor bonus. So later on, I was looking at it again. I was like, oh, I just got on there and looking at it. I was like,
seller was trying to get rid of that one. For sure.
Yeah. So it was a short sale, and the bank didn't want it. And so they just tried to close it quick. Anyway, so like he talked us into this sale because he was getting $1,000 bonus, which back then was a lot more money than it is now. It's still a lot of money now, but back then it was a lot of money for a realtor to get $1,000 bonus. So he came on real heavy, with the pressure. And I just remember, like, when we went and looked at it, it was super rushed, and we didn't get to spend that long. And this is another lesson I learned. You truly can't see a house when a lot of people's stuff is in it.
Yeah.
When you got a ton of stuff in there, you're not going to be able to really see the house for what it is. And that's what happened to us. And so we ended up going ahead and getting under contract. And of course, it had to be a fast closing, no inspection, no option period, because it was such a good deal. And the day of closing, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go over there one more time. Let's go do a walkthrough. Because we didn't really see it that much, and like closing was like in an hour, and it was right down the street. It's like, let's go. So I get there, and the seller is still moving out. It's a short sale, so technically he's still the seller. And he tells me, by the way, there's a slab leak. And by the way, there's a crack in the sewer line, right? None of that was disclosed. None of that was disclosed to us. There should have been a seller's disclosure. Why wasn't there? And he knew that. And it was a short sale, but it was, that person lived there. Realtor didn't make sure we got a seller's disclosure. We should have. Anyway, so at that point, I remember, like, we could have walked away. We could have just like not gone to closing. Yeah. I just didn't have the nerve. Like at the time, I was like, it kind of like fleetingly entered my mind. What if we just don't go? Like what if we just don't close? Because I'm thinking in my mind, thousands of dollars here, bad sewer line, bad slab leak, right? So it's kind of going through my mind, and I'm like, but of course we went out and we went to closing anyway. Big mistake. And then right after closing, we just started having these awful problems. We just didn't realize how bad the foundation problems were. And I know you guys, anybody that's viewed my channel, you hear me talk about foundation problems, and don't, just to have a respect for the fact that it's not like replacing a roof. Okay. They usually are not fixable. They're usually going to resettle. Pier and beam, not so much.
Maybe depends on the.
Yeah.
Still depends on the area.
Yeah, I mean, pier and beam, they're a lot easier to fix, but those, yeah, the slab, the foundations with the slab, they just
the older slab.
Yeah, and this was a 1970s.
70s,
This was a 70s house.
70s,
yeah.
80s.
Yeah, and fun fact, that entire neighborhood, has foundation problems. The whole thing. Anyway, we learned that foundation problems bring a whole other slew of problems with them. Okay. And so we are like constantly having to write checks. You know, it's like the bookkeeper's like, well, how do you want to pay for this one? Well, how do you want to pay for this? And I'm like, I just don't know. So what we found out is like, you know, you've got your slab foundation and you've got all of these pipes that go in and out of it. You've got your gas line. You've got freshwater lines. You've got sewer lines. And they're all these individual pipes. Everywhere where you have a plumbing device, you have pipes going into the slab, you know, so 3 bathrooms, kitchen, all of those, and they kept breaking. And suddenly the tenant would be like, there is some horrible smell in this house. And it ended up, what had happened was the pipe in the toilet had broken. And so all the, you know what, was going straight into the ground. It wasn't going out through the pipes. Right. And the only way we knew was because, you know, and so we had a lot of turnover also because the tenants are like, it's constantly plumbing backups because the sewer line was cracked. We had to replace the gas line. That was really expensive too. And I think at some point we were just like, we got to walk away.
We're done.
Yeah, we're just done. I mean, I think maybe it was like one really, really expensive one that, I don't know, it was like $5,000 or $6,000. And I was just like, done. Oh, and then we also had a contractor go up in the attic, and he said that all the beams were like super soft because they were like consumed with termites.
Oh yeah, I forgot we had termites. Yeah.
And he's like, I'll give you a really good deal to fix and replace every one of these wood rafters. I'm just like, anyway, nightmare experience. Okay, we learned so much from that, and to the extent that we're like almost Debbie Downers. In my YouTube channel and how protective we are, it came from like this experience. Again, we were like very much strict budgeters, A+ credit, you know, and then we just got the stars in our eyes about how we were going to be these great investors. This is what, okay, if you're going to ask me like, what did we learn? Okay, this is what I would say.
Key takeaways.
Don't put up with a high pressure realtor. Don't do it. Walk away. The minute they put pressure on you to buy or to put an offer in, walk out the door. That's not the right realtor. Don't ever put up with it. Okay. I can't say that enough. Also insist on information and data. And I would say like when you're interviewing a realtor to ask them then, are you going to give me this? To go ahead and have like when we talk with buyers, we're like, here's the list of the services that we're going to provide. So there's no confusion. We're like, this is exactly what you can expect. So get the information, get the data, get an objective market analysis, right? Because remember, our realtor was constantly giving us a fake CMA. If I had it to look at now, I'd just be like, that is so false. Like I would know, I would be able to go, yeah, that's completely wrong. But back then, of course, I didn't know anything. I mean, we were green. And then I would make sure you understand representation, because if I knew that the realtor was supposed to be representing me, half the time he was working against me. And I was having to like negotiate with him when I would tell him what I wanted to offer. And then also ask them, how are you going to negotiate for me? Right? Are you going to just tell me to just make that offer? I think that's what a lot of people do. Like a lot of realtors, they'll be like, well, you know, the new construction company is giving you this great incentive, just sign and pay. I think that you get that a lot. So insist on and read the contracts. All right. Okay. So to the extent that you guys hear me talking about like predatory contracts, okay, it kind of comes from all these bank contracts that we had to read because everything we bought was a foreclosure. Like, I mean, we ultimately bought like 40 properties. Every one of them, I think, except maybe 2 were foreclosures. And so I'm telling you, like the giant thick addendums that came from these banks and never having their realtor read them with me, right? And just like not knowing what I was signing.
And banks aren't going to answer your questions.
Yeah. And so like that kind of that whole experience lends into me being like, hey, let's have a contract review.
Right.
Hey, take the time. I know it's fine print, like especially Grand Homes. Oh my gosh, their contracts are so fine print. Anyway, that's where all that came from, was me going, we need to read this contract. And then I guess I would say to seriously respect and fear foundation problems. Okay. Yes, I know I'm not like trying to be like conspiracy person here, but you need to know foundation problems are the real deal. They're very serious. And on the listing, an agent will usually give you a schematic and engineer's report. And just because you have the engineer's report doesn't mean that it's fixed. Okay. It doesn't. It just means that they're showing that work was done. Like we've looked at some that were like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Now, sometimes you'll have one where the foundation is very stable. Maybe they put a few piers in, but typically, honestly, once that foundation starts to shift, it's bad news. And like I said, it takes all the pipes with it.
There's a lot of, there's a lot of different things, and it depends on the age and locations and what caused the foundation problem in the first place. If it was bad maintenance, or if it's just poorly built, or if it was just that area, and if it's going to continue or not. And that's why we use another foundation company that gives us objective reports that help.
Yeah. So, we actually have a great foundation company that they do. Half the time they'll just tell us it doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
And so they're not self-serving. They're genuinely wanting you to know. So, which is another thing I was going to say, like they don't have to, you can have a foundation company without actually having any kind of licensure that goes with it, right? You can just say, hey, I'm a foundation company. I know how to dig holes and pour concrete, right? I mean, like the foundation company that we were using, I remember I called him like a few years later and said, hey, are you still doing foundation repair? And he said, yeah, I have to operate out of a different business name because I declared bankruptcy on the one. And so he's like, so I have to, but I can still do it. And I'm like, yeah, I trust that. So anyway, so just know that about the foundation problems. Really, we recommend against them. And that's something I guess there's like really some common themes that you're going to hear me talk about a lot. And now that you know we had this foreclosure, you're going to know exactly why we have those common themes. And it's because we tend to be like, we were burned, we were really burned. And like every time I meet with the buyer, I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind, they don't know that they could be burned. They, you know what I'm saying? Like they don't know how bad it can be.
Right.
They don't know that one house can do it. One house with a bad foundation, one house with a pushy realtor who forces you into it. So anyway, that is our experience.
Sad as it was.
It was sad. It was, but
we came out.
We overcame.
Everybody should have a failure so they can learn from it.
I guess that's true. I guess that's true. You really do have to learn from your mistakes. So that was our mistake. And now you guys, know all the details. Gosh, nobody's leaving any comments tonight, are they?
You just haven't selected it.
Oh, there they are. Okay. Okay. Rhonda says.
Good evening. Hi, Rhonda.
Good evening. It's good to see you again. She said, yes, she read it. Okay. What were you talking about there when you said, yes, I read it? What did you read? Tell me more. Z Mag Paloma says, I've been through that. Yes. Yeah. I mean, foundation problems and the foreclosure, it's all just ugly. What did you mean by I've been through that? Which part? Okay. Let's see what Kat says. Kat Cedarberg, our neighbor's house split right down the middle of the house. Took months to fix. They didn't run their drip hoses properly.
Yeah.
Okay. We actually had a house like that.
Yeah.
Okay. We actually did. We didn't end up, and we were able to get rid of that one. But it literally, the tenants told us there's a big hole across the living room floor. And we're like, this is a grumbly tenant. Anyway, and we walk over there, and sure enough, there is a gap so big that you can see it from the carpet, like the carpet's covering it. It's like it just kind of went like this, and you had to push it back together again. So yeah, people need to really fear the foundation problems. Let's see. So let's see. Z Mag Paloma says the trees do a lot of damage underground with the pipes.
Sometimes, yeah.
They really do. They do. Although, I mean, there's sometimes they don't. Like sometimes that house we sold in McKinney had those huge trees and it was perfectly fine. Okay. There you go. Rhonda, I read the book you mentioned. Yes, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Okay, it's like this totally inspirational book. I mean, you just
it's good knowledge. I mean, it's good good information.
And so the book, the cash flow game that he makes. Okay, our son loves to play that, and like when I play it with him, it drives me crazy because I'm like, it's not this easy. It's like, I'm like, it doesn't work that way, because it'll be like, buy a rental, make $400 a month. And I'm like, yeah, but then this goes and this happens and this. I'm like, this is not realistic, So I'm always like, if only it were that easy. We still own some rentals now.
Yeah.
We haven't bought any more in a long time because we don't feel like it's the right market for buying rentals. So we kind of have left that scope of it. Anyway, well, I don't see any other comments. So thank you guys. If there's nothing else, thank you for.
Hope you can learn from this, and
yes, please learn.
Always ask questions.
Please learn from our mistakes. I would say interview whatever realtor you want to use, because you guys aren't all local, so you maybe look at all over, the United States. Interview whoever you're going to use and make them tell you what services they provide, and kind of dig into that area of them being high pressure, because ultimately they should be team you, not team them. They need to be team you. Let's see here now. Kat says, do you know if there are any other builders aside from Lennar in the University Place development off of Coit and Richardson? I don't know offhand. Dale's going to look it up, but I will say that you're wise to not consider Lennar personally. Did you see our live stream last week where we talked about Lennar? Man, I was just talking to Travis Spencer about this earlier, and I was like, man, I don't even want to talk about Lennar because they just did our clients so wrong. So Dale's looking it up, but actually tomorrow I am doing a collaboration with Travis, the real estate mindset guy. So I think that's going to be pretty fun. Let's see. Yes, I've been watching you since last June. Oh, I'm so glad. And then Advate Plays says hi.
Looks like there may be Megatel there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Dale's looking and he's saying maybe Megatel. Oh, you can speak for yourself. Anyway.
Yeah, it looks like it's Lennar and Megatel.
Yeah.
That's the two.
I really am not a huge fan of either. I mean, like, I have issues with Megatel. I don't like their whole lagoon model. Really not a fan.
I don't think they're doing lagoon here.
Yeah. OSO says, I follow Travis. Yes. Well, I asked him, so it's just a recorded one. And we're going to talk about the Dallas housing market. And I asked him, I was like, so, I'm thinking like, well, when are you going to publish this? And he goes, probably within the next, few days. So when you see my face on Real Estate Mindset, yeah, it's really me. We're going to talk about Dallas housing market. We're going to talk about similar topics as what we're talking about here tonight. We're going to talk about like the predatory nature that you can run into with various real estate professionals and how you really want to avoid that. He told me that he said that I was like a bulldog in real estate. It's like, I haven't been told that before. He's like, you sound like you negotiate like a bulldog. I was like, it's Dale that negotiates like a bulldog. I just make videos. In North Dallas, is Liliana MI Home good? Please give your valuable inputs. Well, we are closing one.
Yeah. I mean, Liliana is a great neighborhood.
Yes.
MI Homes they're kind of a mid-range builder.
Yeah.
You can get some decent stuff out of them.
Okay. So our buyer, we are closing a new build there next month. Yeah, next month.
Yep.
And so far that process seems to be going. It's had some hiccups, but it is kind of moving through. We showed a spec home, an MI spec home, Liliana. Were you with me on that one?
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was not.
It seemed like it needed some work, but yeah.
It just like there were already like cuts in the floors. Like I remember looking at the floor going, that's already scraped up and nobody's ever lived here. How did they accomplish that?
Yeah.
And then like it just kind of looked cheap also. So, but that could have just been that's what they decided to put in that spec home.
Yeah.
So
I know they have a low level that they put
do.
a standard, but also I know the sales consultant there. She's really good. She'll do a good job for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. She is
Yeah.
good at the MI. And that's what you should know about MI is they have a very low product, very low end.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have their higher end.
Yeah.
So like, whereas like some companies like Centex, I guess they'll have different company names for their low end product versus their
Right.
high end product, but MI is not like that.
Yeah.
It's all under one company name. And so like, I have looked at ones in like Crowley that I'm just like, oh my word, this is so cheap. You know, it's like, and like we ended up definitely not going with that. We went with Antares. And then we looked the one in Liliana, and some of them weren't bad, except that one. I was just not really impressed.
They're building, they're finishing up their phase 6 over on the, I think it's the Coit and Frontier, corners of Coit and Frontier there.
Oh, okay. So, I get you. Yeah. Let's see here now. How soon do you think we should start the looking process in DFW if we know we want to move next spring?
So a year from now.
Yeah.
Depends on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, it depends on are you looking to have a home built, or if you're just going to look for a home that's already built, either inventory or pre-owned. I would say if you're going to have a home built, it's really not that too early because there's a lot of choices to make. You know, a community you want, the lots you want in the community, which plans you like the best, and then once you even start that and you choose all that, you got to go through the design process and get all those choices made out, and then you have to then the builder has to take all that information, get a permit and stuff. That can take a month or so. So I mean, it's not terribly too early if you're going to build, because it's about, depending on the builder, probably close to a 10-month build time, 8 to 10 months probably.
One thing I was thinking too is like, you have essentially when you do a new build, like if you're considering one, I mean, you have a house that you can pick up and kind of virtually move wherever, right? So right now you could be looking just by deciding what floor plans you like, because
or drive through some communities and look at what kind of lots.
Yeah, I just had a caller earlier this week who called it a windshield tour.
Yeah.
It's like, that's true. That's a good way to put it. It's a windshield tour. So honestly, right now it's not too early. Now it's too early to look at pre-owned homes, and it's too early to look at inventory homes, unless you're just looking at the inventory home to decide if you like the floor plan. Right. So it's really too early for those things. But if you actually wanted to like build from the ground up, man, you nailed it. You got so many decisions to make there. You really do. Let's see. Smile emoji.
Oh, okay.
Laugh emoji. Gotcha. All right. Let's see here now. I follow you from last year. It's all valuable. Last 1 year. It's all valuable information. That is awesome.
Good job.
If you have any other ideas of things you want us to talk about, be sure and let me know, because I'm always very open and love to do ideas. Been working through a series on builders, because I figured everybody needs to know builder by builder, the different things they have in their contracts and the quality and all that. But yeah, if you have anything you'd like to see, let me know. Kat Sitterberg, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Let's see here now. Has home buying slowed down in DFW? I'm seeing a lot of inventory homes. Chris, you're not just seeing things. That's really is happening. It's a divided market.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can think of, because there are some, in fact, earlier today, I was doing some research on biggest house price drops, because I wanted to talk about that a little bit with Travis when we do the collab tomorrow. And I was finding definitely Midlothian. I was finding some really big price drops. At Hayes Crossing, I was seeing down to 87% of list price. And then the entire community selling it like an average of 94% of the list price. So not a single person paid the full list price. And then Midlothian, just massive amounts of homes on the market. So they are just really, really overstocked right now. And so there's other ones too. Another one, Argyle, Harvest.
Argyle, Harvest. Yeah. Little Elm.
How many were you saying that are in Harvest alone?
In Harvest, there was 70 something.
Yeah. So in one community, just Harvest, which, okay, granted, Harvest is really big. It is a very cool community. If you've never been there, it is so cool. And it's big. But just in that one community, I think 70 something. And I did.
Those are just the ones that were active on the MLS.
Yeah. And I did a report on that today too. I was looking at, I think too, like the pre-owned sellers at Harvest are hurting because they've also got competing new construction. And so when I was looking at it, about half of them were new construction, half of them were pre-owned. And so then that is a tough position to be in. So I do think that the market is not as strong as we would typically see in May.
Yeah. There was a little bit of a drop of rates today, but we'll see.
Yeah, we live in hope, right? We don't want them to drop too much, but a little more affordability wouldn't be bad. So yeah, Chris, I think that you're seeing correctly. I think we are seeing a bit of a slowdown. ZMAG says, please highlight the pros of pre-existing homes. It's not all negative. You're right.
All right.
You're 100% correct.
There's some great buys. Yeah.
There are. And I always tell people the things you can get with pre-owned homes, man, you can get a pool, right, that you didn't have to pay for. You're not going to get that with new construction.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay for that bad boy if you want a pool. You can get mature trees. Right. And really that's like what you want to capitalize on. If you're going to go pre-owned, man, get something that new construction can't give. So if you get with a pre-owned home and it's just a little bitty yard with no trees or anything, it'd be better if you're going to go pre-owned, see if you can get some really nice, big towering trees. Mm-hmm. So you're right. There are definitely pros. Now, another pro of pre-existing homes are the location, the centrality, the shorter commute, right? Because new construction tends to build out in the exurbs, right? And so, to the extent that you're like, I have to go back to the office now. I don't want to commute for an hour. Pre-owned homes, okay. If you're looking in Plano or Allen, it's hard to find anything new.
And if you have a lot of cash, you may get a really good deal on it. You might be able to get a really good deal on a loan assumption.
That is true.
Yeah. So
that is actually a very good point. Because the loan assumptions, man, especially if it's FHA, VAs are tough because a lot of times the VA seller doesn't want to give up his entitlement, but the FHAs, man, you can get in there and get a 3% interest rate. Mm-hmm. Assumptions aren't for anybody. Like Dale said, you got to have a big down payment, really big, most of the time, 100,000 plus big, down payment, depending on the equity. But yeah, so those are, did I do good? Did I give you some of the perks?
You may want a new show on that.
Yes. Should I do a video on the perks of pre-existing? I think I actually did once. I was talking about the things you should get with them, like the pool and the and the big trees, and you can get the assumable loan. Let's see. Did I do good? I got a smiley face. Yes, we did good. We did good. I do think that there's a lot of opportunity in pre-owns right now. Where they're competing with new construction. That's where you can really get a good deal.
The market a little bit longer in there.
Yeah, because they're not new. So that, you go into the neighborhood, you look at brand new, and then you look at pre-owned, you're like, I want the brand new. And so I think it's hard for some pre-owned sellers. Now, in landlocked cities like Allen and Plano, little bit of a stronger market. Mm-hmm. Less listings because they're pre-owns, right? In fact, that was the other thing, the other research I did today. I was looking, again, for the biggest price drops, and I was looking in Princeton, and interesting fact. Okay. So Princeton's population, 28,000, they have like 250 listings, right? Plano's population, 290,000, they have less listings.
Wow.
Yeah. So literally Princeton has 1/10 the size of Plano, or 1/10 the population of Plano, and they have more listings. And so when you think about the fact that like you're seeing these price drops, well, gosh, and of the 250, it was like 150 of them were new construction.
Wow.
Right. So Princeton wouldn't have this oversaturated market if it wasn't for new construction, but, and all of them, they were like lower end homes, some under 300,000. So Princeton has just decided to be very friendly to the more affordable sphere. So it's probably not the place you want to buy $1 million home by any stretch of the imagination, but you can get some good deals there. I definitely saw some. I'm trying to remember, can't remember the name of the neighborhood I spotlighted on that one, but I'll talk about it with Travis tomorrow when I have it in front of me. So saw some good deals in Princeton, Hurton pre-owns as well as builders, and then saw some in Argyle at the Harvest, and then also in Midlothian at Hayes Crossing. All right. So I don't see any other questions or comments. All right. So I just want to wrap it up.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Well, listen, you guys, until next week, have a great week. Have a great rest of the week. Rhonda says, thanks. It's always good to see you again, Rhonda. Yeah. All right. You guys have a good week, and we'll talk again next week. Bye.
Bye.